I'm really excited to give you a little bit of information on our work with Safe and Civil Schools around the creation of and the continuation of safe and supportive learning environments. Am I doing this? Let's try. Did it work? Oh, it worked. At first it didn't. Okay. So, of course, we know through policy language, our vision for safe and supportive learning environments is, of course, around creating learning environments in every part of our school that are safe, orderly, clean, and inviting. We know that it is a priority for all of our schools to support students in learning and practicing responsible behavior, where they are treated fairly, where they have input on decisions that affect them when feasible, and also for implementing plans for managing student behavior that's proactive, positive, and effective in avoiding repeated misbehaviors and suspensions. So those patterns of behavior are certainly a concern. We also understand that our strategic plan goals, especially Strategy 2.1, creating those supportive school and classroom climates, not only focuses on those learning environments, but operating a continuum of supports that integrate the academic and the behavioral needs of students so that those work in alignment and are cohesive. Also, supportive discipline with policies and practices that are not only instructive, but developmentally appropriate. So our focus on safe and supportive learning environments through the work with Safe and Civil Schools, which is a national evidence-based, a national company that operates on evidence-based products and frameworks. So we started in 2021 with Policy 4302, the school plan for the management of student behavior, where each of our schools worked from a template that was their school-wide behavior plan. That template was added to their school improvement plans as a way that really spoke about the work that they're doing in aligning those integrated academic and behavior supports. That was also created within their building, among their staff, among their parent population. So those school-wide behavior plan templates came from Safe and Civil Schools. So we have been using as much of this work as, number one, we could resource and that we could really gather, and we're coming to more and more of it. In 21-22, if you will recall, we piloted with 11 elementary schools behavior leadership foundations. And we went through 6 sessions of very intense professional development, really attempting to affect our out-of-school suspension rates among elementary and to inform our school plans and for our teachers and staff to build their behavior support tools in their toolbox to be able to support more students, especially with challenging behaviors. In 22-23, that's where you see the strategic plan goals that were incorporated, especially around student safety and wellness, and especially around those supportive school and supportive classroom environments. So in the last school year, our focus was in really using Safe and Civil Schools' STOIC work. Every single one of our schools has operated professional development around STOIC, which is structuring, teaching, observing, interacting with flexibility with our students, and then the C is correcting, but we like to refer to that as giving feedback because sometimes you provide feedback that isn't specifically correction. And that STOIC framework really is able to provide a stronger structure in the building of your classroom management system and those safe and supportive learning environments that are also welcoming and engaging. The more we have engaging classroom environments, the more our students are able to perform successfully in a behavioral sense, but also in an academic sense. So in this school year, in 24-25, with funds that have been carved out for disproportionality, we are engaging in a very specific targeted focus with professional development for 5 schools that meet that criteria. So a pre-K center, 2 elementary schools, 1 middle and 1 high school. Of course, using, like I said, those disproportionality funds that are those federal dollars that are meant to help us build those skills within those targeted schools around supporting our students that have behavioral challenges that are identified as having a disability in emotional disturbance, but then also those students that may, although we're, I don't know what kind of technology thing I'm having. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I haven't sizzled yet. I'm just going to keep going while it threatens. So those students who are identified with an emotional disability or disorder, and then also trying to make sure that we keep those students in school and are not engaging in out-of-school suspensions. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question? Are we allowed to know the 5 schools, the pre-K
Yes.
center, the 2 elementaries in the middle, and the high?
Oh, absolutely. So, thank you. Johnson Preschool, Blair Elementary, Alderman Elementary, Noble Middle School, and Laney High School. Thank you for asking that. So, the professional development focus has really been on leadership, school classroom culture and climate, really setting that stage, setting that foundation, and then empowering our staff with all of the skills that they need. This is not one-time sit and get professional development. This is very in-depth. It really questions the frameworks that we already have in place. It questions the systems that we use. And in those particular schools, it's a real focus on bringing those experienced and highly involved staff together to work on their own school plans for the management of student behavior. So we know the research tells us around positive school culture and climate, increasing school connectedness, and then high academic achievement. We know that positive school culture and climate, first of all, improves the mental health of everybody. That's going to be the mental health and wellness of our staff, the mental health and wellness of our students, and we know that that improves the mental health and wellness of our families. It's also really important to know that the more we do on this work, we're looking at improved school safety efforts. Increased school connectedness, number 1, focuses on improving our school attendance and affecting our chronic absenteeism. And I know you will recall, Dr. Barnes has been talking about his priority areas for the budget being around school safety, challenging student behaviors, and then also chronic absenteeism. Well, we also know that the more we affect our chronic absenteeism and improve our school attendance, we are improving academic engagement. That goes hand in hand. And then as we reach that higher academic achievement, we will see a greater effect on our graduation rates and improved post-secondary outcomes, which comes full circle to the work that the Turnaround Task Force is hoping to continue to affect in economic and workforce development by meeting the needs of our families.
So we began this in 2021.
We began some of the work, yes, in 2021 with the policy development and using that template, but we have been able to find and identify more resources to increase that level of engagement. In 2021, our schools had the template, but that was really it. So we said, this is how we want to frame these school plans. In 21-22, we were able to do professional development with 11 of them so that they had a greater understanding around why that template, why that school plan for management of student behavior had those particular components in it, that classroom management component, that parent involvement component, that instructional lesson plan component. And then into this, all the way fast forward into the 5th year where we're doing that targeted professional development. I want to also mention the professional development, when you find a framework that really does work, these aren't available everywhere, right? These are not resources that are available in our next county or really even within our state. So these are highly specialized resources, highly specialized professional development. When we're able to invest the resources in this kind of work, we want to get the maximum effort from it. While we can only use these disproportionality funds for these particular 5 schools, we know that the trainers will allow more seats in the room than just those 5 schools. So we're going to fill up every seat in a room of professional development. We can pay for it for these 5 schools, but when that only takes up 50 seats out of 75, then we've got 25 seats, and we want it to be among our schools who can send somebody now. So we're filling up the spaces.
So this is grant money. How do we get the money? How come we got it and they didn't?
So this is disproportionality funds. This is that 15% set aside of our federal IDEA funds that have to be used to address the identification of emotional disabilities, and then on that warning side, the suspension of students with disabilities.
Ms. Barnhart?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask, I know sometimes the board is allotted the opportunity to sit on some of these, so if this is something that we're able to attend, just
Okay,
and
absolutely, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move back to this. So the Safe and Civil Schools Framework alignment or does align very much with the survey findings from our staff climate survey back in the spring, early summer. So number one, district and school, we can find that we're going to foster positive, trusting relationships between our staff, our students, and their families. Within the classroom, we've already talked about, this is really that further development of those welcoming environments where our staff and students together are thriving. And at the student level, this increases a sense of belonging for a student that improves their attendance and their academic engagement. They are much more interested in participating when they feel a level of success and they feel like they belong and they feel that they're welcome and they're ready to come and do the really difficult work, especially around addressing challenging behaviors. So the professional development and coaching plan has this overall kind of framework of focus areas. First and foremost, school safety is paramount to us. We understand that all of these have that commingled effect. So we are addressing discipline policy and procedures, student and staff interactions, that connectedness to school, student engagement and achievement, that staff collective and individual sense of efficacy. So if our staff feel that they can be successful with students, they are much more likely to be successful. How can we increase their feelings of their perception of their ability to be successful, their efficacy? And then, of course, that climate and culture. And I want to do a little commercial break to this.
We just heard one.
Right? I'm doing a little commercial break. We are also working with professional development around reframing behavior, which is more that trauma-informed approach. CPI has, and I think I've spoken to you guys about this before, but CPI's Reframing Behavior, which is a new resource available that has just been published in this year. I think it was maybe released in June. It aligns and provides additional skill development for our teachers, but we are able to do reframing behavior district-wide, even if we're not able to do the Safe and Civil Schools work district-wide. Right now, this can be the focus of 5 schools, with us bringing in others at, on a voluntary basis and filling up the seats. But CPI's reframing behavior is that on-demand professional development kind of library that offers any staff working in schools mini lessons or deeper dives into understanding why some of our challenging behavior exists among our students, and kind of getting kind of in front of that, not only on the prevention piece, but what interventions do we provide when a student is engaging in challenging behavior, but that is rooted in some mental health concern, some behavioral health concern, rooted in anxiety, rooted in trauma. How do we address that? Because that's not just a compliance effort. That is a supportive effort with those students. So our intended outcomes, especially from the teacher perspective, we framed in the no-do measure. What do we really want teachers and all school staff to know? We want them to know, inside and out, the management strategies around proactive and positive classrooms. We want them to be able to differentiate behavior supports, but also be able to supplement those. What needs to be in place for all students, what needs to be in place for some students, and then what needs to be in place for just a few students. We also want them to know how to use their classroom level data to make instructional decisions, not just around academic interventions, but also around behavior interventions. Now, what do we want our teachers and other staff to be able to do? We want them to be able to implement those proactive and positive classroom management strategies, effectively supervise students, and then also differentiate and intervene with fidelity, making real-time adjustments based on data. So not just implementing a plan because it's the plan that we said we would implement, but understanding enough about the behavioral interventions to know when to tweak the intervention but still implement with fidelity to get the greatest possible outcome. And that outcome would be decreasing the problematic behavior, decreasing the likelihood of problematic behavior. And then we want our staff to be able to measure intervention effectiveness. Let's not use interventions that aren't effective, but let's understand how to measure them so we know if they are effective or not. We want them to measure student engagement and then measure progress toward goals. If we have the established goals, how do we know that we're making progress or not?
Bradford?
So besides that, and improve mental health and wellness, do we have any data yet on improving school attendance or the higher graduation?
So this is new implementation. So this year we're implementing for the first time with those 5 schools that deep dive in that professional development. So ask me that again in several months and ask me again in 1 year. And then in 2 years, I really expect to tell you some exciting information. Thank you. It's an excellent question.
Barnhart?
And as far as the data, I know we have drilled down on different things as we look at overarching out-of-school suspensions. When you're looking at repeat offenders, and the decrease of repeat offenders is going to be different than unique first-time suspensions as well. And so I think sometimes that gets lost in the messaging. I definitely feel like our friends at Love Our Children would be wanting this information, so I don't know if we can also send this directly to them, but I think that that's something we need to be looking at and monitoring too. I know the RISE program, I can't say enough good things about it, but they kind of broke that down into the different data points to see the decrease, not necessarily that somebody has completely stopped with a bad behavior result, but the decrease of repeat offenses and things like that. So I think that's important for us to look at when we're talking data points as well.
Yes, because it's the difference of intervening and affecting recidivism, meaning that repeat,
Correct.
or preventing, and then you don't have that challenging and problematic behavior from a student at all. Absolutely. Good. All right. So intended outcomes around school administrators. Again, the no-do measure. We want them to know how to develop those school-wide behavior plans. We want them to know how to provide effective feedback to our staff and how to use the data in continuous improvement. We want our administrators to be able to walk through classrooms, do those walk-through observations, and give meaningful feedback on what they're seeing, being a part of that professional development so they can offer those fidelity checkpoints and maybe offer that mentoring approach as well. We want them to be able to, again, use the data to drive decision-making, and then create that sense of shared ownership and shared accountability. Again, that was a huge component and a huge response in the staff survey, wanting that shared accountability. And then measuring. We want our school administrators to be able to measure our implementation efforts by staff, and then also our school-wide data. That's that question on what does this look like for our attendance, what does this look like for our discipline, and then I would add in there, thank you, Ms. Bradford, what does this already look like for our graduation rate? And then for us, district leaders and support staff, knowing how to coach and problem solve with our school-based staff, knowing how to collect and summarize that data for decision-making, and to drive decision-making at the district level, whether that's in the resources we outline for professional development, or whether that's in procedures to implement policy, or whether that's to drive policy change. What do we want to be able to do? Support that process with guided questions. We also want to be able to engage in those walkthrough observations with meaningful feedback, analyzing the data with confidence. And then what do we measure? We're going to measure the response to coaching. How responsive are our staff, our teachers, our support staff, our administrators to coaching? And what's our response from our students on the interventions that are provided to them at their individual level, at maybe their classroom or whole school level, and then maybe at the district level? and then this is what we expect to see at the end.
Board members, do we have any questions or comments?
Is it possible for us to get a list of those metrics that you're going to be looking at measuring the implementation piece and ending?
Yes, and I also want to mention, we are, Dr. Hamilton and Mr. Worthington, he's rep, and Susan Cole and I have been invited to the headquarters of Safe and Civil Schools in Oregon to participate in, again, an invite-only conversation with them around the latest research debriefs and then other resources around what's happening around the country and how other school districts are solving their problems around aligning academic and behavior supports. And so we will be getting a lot more of that information from that district level implementation mapping, and then I'll be able to give some more feedback on that. So I'm really excited to go, and again, one of the major components is going to be around improved school safety, but also improving attendance and student engagement.
Awesome. Dr. Barnes, if you have-
Yeah, when we look at, obviously, safety in schools is a primary concern for all of the people sitting at this table and the people sitting out there. The way you address school safety, beyond just helping respond to violent acts that happen in schools and dangerous things that happen in schools, it's to equip teachers and students with new behaviors that they can use to decrease the overall level of just disruption in schools. And so I think that's why I asked Julie to speak to this today, because I think it's a good way to show how comprehensive an approach we're taking about school safety.
And if you need a volunteer to, go with you, just, raise my hand. I'm kidding.
Oregon in January.
Is that true?
Oh, yeah, well, I didn't know it was
Probably.
January, you know we mentioned that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Ms. Varnam.